Hey guys, welcome into the Stink Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside my partner, Mike Evans. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Please subscribe, do all the things you do. And I tell you what, I'm getting ready to head to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. Can't wait. Super Bowl 59, the Eagles versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm just kind of curious. What kind of, you're in New York. You do the Fox show, Breakfast Ball show in New York, media capital of the country, of the world, and all that kind of stuff. I'm just kind of curious. Are you feeling a buzz around the Super Bowl? Because here in Denver, I don't know if it's because of Bronco fans hated the Chiefs or it's because we just saw the Chiefs and Eagles a couple of years ago. I don't know if I'm feeling the same kind of vibe around this Super Bowl. What are you feeling?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think there's some buzz. I think maybe when you get to New Orleans, there'll be a little bit more about it. But, it's interesting. I look at these two fan bases, and I'll be honest with you. I've gotten in some fights over the course of my, time in media with different fan bases. Like it's the legendary fight with the New York Jets, right? And then I've had the tete-a-tetes with the Giants fans, and I've had, fights with Eagle fans and all that stuff. There's
Ravens fans,
Steelers
fans,
yes. Bengals fans. I've had a lot of issues.
Maybe the better way to go at it is, what fan base have you not pissed off?
It's a great call. I even pissed off Bronco fans when I initially started our radio show and picked the New England Patriots to beat the Broncos in the AFC Championship game. And then I had to write a strongly worded apology letter to get myself back in the circle of trust. But I will be honest with you. It's interesting. I don't know that I've come across more whiny bitches than the Kansas City Chiefs fans lately. Like their insecurities when it comes to officiating and all you guys have won 2 in a row. You won 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls. And you're like, we're not whining, you're whining. You put grease on your arms and you cheated. And it's unbelievable. You want to talk about you want to talk about whale poop softness. That's the Kansas City Chiefs fans. But I think one of the issues when it comes to this Super Bowl in general, Mike, it's like you're like, I don't want to root for that fan base because Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and Kermit the Frog, we're all tired of the Kansas City. We're tired of the Kansas City. And you can't hate Andy Reid because Andy Reid's this avuncular figure, he's this guy nuggies. I want some nuggies, Butterooski. You can't be mad at Andy Reid, but we're sick of the Chiefs. And so you're like, okay, well, let's root for the Eagles. You can't root for that fan base either. I've told you this story. So I'm working at ESPN and I want to go my son is in his rookie year, pitching for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they're playing the Philadelphia Phillies, right? And I've got a show at it was at 12-1. And so I've got my rental car. I'm in Connecticut, right? And Philadelphia's 3.5 hour drive or whatever. And I'm like, oh shit, we're done at 1. I'm going to jump in the car. I got a couple of PAs with me, right? Keep me going. We're excited, right? And a bunch of young kids want to go to the game. And so we drive to Philly. We're hightailing to Philly. We get caught in a bunch of traffic. Anyhow, we get to the stadium around the 7th inning. And we're running and we grab our tickets, right? And I go right to the bullpen. And my son's down in the bullpen kind of warming up, getting ready. And as I'm walking up, there's a father and a son standing over the bullpen heckling my son. And this kid is 8 years old. And he's flipping my son off. He's like, right? And this father's I'm walking up and they're dog cussing my son. F you, Schlereth, you piece of, da-da-da. And all of a sudden the guy's like, your mother's a whore. Your sisters are whores, right?
Oh,
I walk up and the guy turns around and goes, "Oh, hey, Sting, will you sign this?" Like there's zero, honest to goodness, there's absolutely zero shame. Yeah, your mother's a whore, your sister's a whore. You're like, "Oh, Sting, sign my buddy. Game Day magazine, right?" And it was funny. So I've had my tete-a-tete with Philadelphia Eagle fan, but I respect Philadelphia Eagle fan. Like Philadelphia, like if you criticize, like Giant fans could be really pissed off with the Giants, but if you're not a Giant fan and you criticize the Giants, they get hurt. Like then they come after you. If I say something about Philadelphia Eagles football and they happen to agree with it or think it's true, they're like, "Yeah, come on the bandwagon. Yeah. You cuss at our team just like we cuss at our team." And so I've always respected that. But I think one of the issues with this game, as far as just buzz is concerned, Mike, is that people are sick of the Kansas City Chiefs, but it's really hard to root for Eagle fan, right? For the Eagles. So there's this kind of feel of like it's easy to get behind somebody else, but it's kind of hard to get behind the Philadelphia Eagles because their fan base is, you're wearing a hat of the opponent and somebody will punch you in the back of the head and steal your hat. So I think that's kind of what's going on around the country right now.
So the narrative around the Kansas City, of course, is about the officiating and the idea that the fix is in, the games are rigged, the bias towards the Chiefs with the officials. No surprise, Roger Goodell in his State of the Game press conference was asked about it pretty much right away. What do you think about these charges against the NFL? He said, "Hey, listen, our people are very passionate. They face a lot of scrutiny," and he called it, quote, "a ridiculous theory." The idea that this is rigged in any way. Let me ask you this question, and you've spoken with Roger Goodell privately before.
Sure.
If you got him in a private moment, even though he came out and said, "Oh, come on, there's nothing to it," do you think privately he likes the idea that there's that perception out there surrounding the Chiefs and that you'll have people tuning into the Super Bowl just simply to hate watch the Chiefs?
Yeah,
and you look at it because you look at the numbers. The playoff game against the Texans, highest rated, most watched game ever for on ESPN. The championship game against Buffalo a couple weeks ago, the most watched AFC championship game since the late 80s. So the Chiefs, this perception, this idea that people are turned off by the NFL because of the Chiefs, the numbers don't back that up.
Right. I think the fact that you have to address it means there's a concern at Park Avenue. Okay. So I think that's one, that the fact that you had to address it means that there is something that you have to look at. And, I'm not one of those conspiracy theorists. I don't believe the NFL is like, let's go let these guys win. There's 32 other teams. You think the owners are going to go like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's let the Chiefs win a bunch in a row. I just don't think that that's true. But we've all said it, the discrepancy in penalties called over the playoffs. Like, okay, I get it. And if you want to give me the reason is the Chiefs are really well coached, I agree with you. Incredibly well coached. The Chiefs are very smart. I agree with you. They're a very smart football team. They're very disciplined. I agree with you. They're very disciplined. I agree in all those aspects of it. Okay, but when it's 2-1 penalties called for you, and it's 2-1 yardage called for that goes in your favor in the playoffs, when anybody who gets to the playoffs is pretty well coached and pretty disciplined and pretty smart, then those numbers concern me a bit. And you talk about it all the time. You and I live in Denver, and we talked about the Nuggets for years and years and years, and how the Lakers just dominated the Nuggets over years and years of basketball history, 40 years of history, and how the Lakers get way more calls than anybody else in basketball. And ultimately, when you've got superstars get calls. And there's nobody that has more superstars in regards to football than Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and it doesn't take away the fact that they're a really smart football team. But it is one of those situations. I find it funny because Chiefs fans are like, there's nothing to see here. You guys are just making this stuff up. It's jealousy. You cheated, this, that, and the other. But just a few years ago when Brady was still in the league, they were like, this is bullshit. Brady gets all the calls. We lose in a divisional round. We lose in an AFC championship. He gets all the calls. It's, the same. I can show you film of Travis Kelce going, it's hard to play against when the Patriots get all the calls. Like, it's not. So, like, listen. Do I think that they get the benefit of the doubt because they've got superstars? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. And I think that's legitimate. And I'm not saying the NFL's got some conspiracy or there's anything going on there. But I think that's the human nature aspect of it is a problem. And then when the perception is, well, all the 50-50 calls seem to go their way. I think that's an issue. So would I be surprised if the NFL addressed it? Hey, listen, before the AFC Championship game, before that game against the Buffalo Bills just a week ago, it was pretty split down the middle. Now, some critical calls seem to go the Chiefs' way, the 4th down and 1. And, when one official's got it spotted as a first down, the other one has it spotted as not a first down. Like, the worthy catch, simultaneous possession, catch, hits the ground, whatever the case may be. Like, all those things, with a lot of people will say, hey, it went the Chiefs' way. I didn't look at the AFC Championship game that way because I thought the penalties were fairly even. And bottom line, again, the Buffalo Bills had the ball at the end of that game with 3:33 left. And they couldn't convert. They couldn't make the plays, and the Chiefs did. And I will give the Chiefs all the credit in the world for that. As much as Chief fan hates me, I'll put it right down the line. I'll give them the credit for making the plays at the end of the game when they had to have them. The 3rd down and 9 conversion to Pirine when they could have, the Bills could have gotten them off the field, and the 4th down and 5 stop and 3rd down and 10 stop, and some other plays that the Bills just flat out weren't able to make.
Yeah, I think I speak for a lot of the fans out there. I think we understand the Chiefs do a lot of things right, okay, and sure. It's not a fluke that they're in this position, but I think that as fans, it is those 50-50 calls. It's one of those things where, okay, the play's under review and they go off to commercial. And we're all kind of wondering, okay, what's the call going to be when we come back? And I think a lot of us as fans would look at the Chiefs' success differently if, just a couple of those calls went against them and they had to overcome some of those 50-50 calls. Right. I think most fans understand. Look, you as an offensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs are going to get away with more holding calls than an offensive lineman for the Tennessee Titans. I think we all understand that. It's just those ones where it is 50-50 could go either way, and the Chiefs need to get all those calls. Well, have a couple of those go against the Chiefs. Yeah. And if they still overcome that and can win a Super Bowl, all right, then tip the cap.
Well, yeah, I would go back to Super Bowl 57 at the end of the game with James Bradbury on Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, I don't remember that call being made the entirety of the game. And then all of a sudden right there, and it was to me, it was totally ticky-tack, right? Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, in a critical moment of the game, a flag comes out. Yeah. And, you look at that 3rd down and 8 conversion in that game against Houston where Will Anderson gets the hit on Mahomes and he flops his head back. And I don't know that their helmets ever touched, even though the league came out and said, no, it was the correct call. No, it wasn't. It was, when Aikman's on the broadcast going, this is a bunch of garbage. Like, you as a league, you should listen to that. And I think they have. And I'm sure, Mike, and I have no inside information on this, but I'm sure inside those offices in Park Avenue, they've had these conversations, say, hey, guys, like I'm not saying that you guys are doing anything that's nefarious, but these things need to balance out. And they did balance out in that Buffalo game. There was equal number of penalties about. I think that the Bills had one more than the Chiefs, and the yardage was basically equal. And I think that's pretty much how it should be. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, and we'll see what happens in this Super Bowl.
We know what the obvious storylines are for the Chiefs. When you look at Philadelphia, what stands out for you? What's the storylines this week for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I mean, obviously we talk a lot about Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley has got an opportunity to go down as the best season for any running back in the history of running backs. Terrell Davis currently has it, right?
Yep.
Total yardage over the course of the regular season and the Super Bowl or the playoffs. And in that season in 1989, had over 2,000 yards rushing, and then that playoff run that he went on, and all the yardage that he had in those playoff games, and and actually culminating in a Super Bowl victory. Like, if Saquon Barkley, even if he sets the record and the Philadelphia Eagles lose the Super Bowl, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Like, nobody knows what the yardage total of Terrell Davis was in 1989 to set the all-time season, leading yardage total. Nobody knows that. And he didn't win an MVP in that Super Bowl. It was the year before that he won the MVP in the Super Bowl. So, it would go down as the greatest running back season ever. And then if Saquon, and you kind of feel this way, if the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl, even if it's, defense making a play or whatever, it's going to go to Patrick. The MVP will go to Patrick Mahomes. It's just the way it is.
Right.
But if the Eagles win it and Saquon has 100+ yards rushing and a TD or two, like, he's got a legitimate shot to win an MVP. And if he won an MVP and he only needs 30 yards to break Terrell Davis's all-time record for total season yardage, that's going to be huge. And what Saquon means to that offense and what he does, and I think one of the cool things for me about Saquon is that not only has he done an unbelievable job with the yardage and the way he's played, but off the ball, blitz pickup, he's amazing, right? Quarterback design run as a lead blocker, he's absolutely amazing. And I'll go back to the NFC Championship game against Washington. They've got a blowout going on, right? The game is over. Shipley, the backup running back, comes in, breaks one with 70 yards and gets tackled. And who's the first guy on the field celebrating?
Yep.
Celebrating like he just broke a 70-yard run. It was Saquon Barkley, man. And I think this is so important in the ultimate team game. And I always tell you, an NFL locker room, it's not segregated, it's compartmentalized.
Yeah.
So you can go through a season, if you play O-line, where you don't bump into one of the DBs on your team, but a handful of times, right? You go to separate meeting rooms, you separate places in the locker room, you're on the separate part of the field when you practice, you're on the line of scrimmage, they're back there in the water, out there doing whatever it is DBs do, who knows. And ultimately, you don't really cross paths that often. And there are certain guys in a locker room that are like connective tissue. They just bring this part of the locker room together with this part of the locker room, and everybody mingles. And I just feel like the one part of the Philadelphia Eagles that was missing over the course of the years has been that connective tissue guy. And Saquon just seems to be that dude, right? Mm-hmm. That everybody respects, everybody gravitates to, and he's just that connective tissue that brings this team together. And whatever problems they're having, whether it's an issue between quarterback and A.J. Brown, and it's documented that they've had whatever issues, whatever, tryst they've had over the course of the last couple of years, like, he's that guy that just smooths it all out and makes it all work. And I just think his value has been incredible when you start putting all those things together as part of the entire package that is Saquon Barkley.
Well, to me, what makes Saquon so unique is just this conversation right here, where we're talking about a team in the Super Bowl, and the first guy we're talking about is a running back. We're not talking about the quarterback.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, every other team, think about it. It's just the way the NFL is now, that every team you talk about, you start with the quarterback. And yet we're not talking. I'm now bringing up Jaylen Hurts for the first time in this podcast.
Right.
And so is that just such a testament to Saquon Barkley, or is it a slight at all towards Jaylen Hurts? Like, what's at stake for Jaylen Hurts in this game?
Right. I think, one, it's a testament to Saquon, but I also think it's a testament to Jaylen Hurts, because Jaylen Hurts can play.
Yeah.
Like, this is Jalen Hurts' second Super Bowl in what, 5 seasons?
Yeah.
Like, he's right there. If he wins this Super Bowl, he's got the same number of Super Bowl championships that I think that Patrick Mahomes had after 5 seasons. So, like, there's a legitimate, like, this is legitimately big for him. And, oh, by the way, when called upon to win games, can he do it? Yeah. And when he was in Super Bowl 57, by the way, he would have been the MVP of Super Bowl 57, had that game gone, had that not been extended by the holding call, had it gone the Philadelphia Eagles' way.
Scored what? Four touchdowns in that game, right?
I believe so, yeah.
One ran for 3, I think.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
So, like, you look at that, and I'll just go on to say the unselfishness that he's displayed.
Yep.
Basically, he's sitting there going, hey, listen, man, what do we need to do to win? You guys need less of me throwing the ball and more of me running it, or more of me handing it off, or more of me, the RPO game or the underneath game, whatever it is. I mean, I'm willing to do it. And that is a testament to his unselfishness as well, because there's a lot of guys that want to win, but they want to win the way they want to win, especially the receiver position, right? Like, guys I want to win as long as I'm the guy that's getting, 12 targets and 9 catches for 122 yards and 2 TDs. Then I'm really, really happy. But if I'm not getting the targets or I'm not getting the TDs, then I'm really, really pissed off. And, oh, by the way, if we lose, but I get 10 targets and 8 catches for 100 yards, I'm okay. Like, let's go out and have dinner and celebrate my success. Like, so I think that's endemic of the position. And I'm painting that with a broad brush, and I know that's probably not right to do, but that's kind of the way that has been portrayed, and it's the way I feel about receivers, for the most part. So I think it's incredible that Jalen Hurts has taken a back seat and said, hey, man, I'm more about winning than I am about my statistics, and it says a lot about who Jalen Hurts is.
How did Nick Sirianni save this? Because a year ago at this point, if I had told you, Mark, the Eagles, they're going to be back in the Super Bowl, and they'll actually have made it look pretty easy, going through the end of the season on through the playoffs, I don't think you would have believed me.
Yeah.
Especially with the state that they were in and the questions that were swirling around Nick Sirianni. So how did he rise above that? How did he get through all that and still come out on the other end? What's kind of the secret sauce to Nick Sirianni?
Yeah, I think there's been some maturity there. I think there's been some growing pains there. I think he's done a really good job of hiring coaches, assistant coaches, coordinators that he trusts, and then he just manages the football team. And, like, he's very involved in game planning offensively, right? But hiring Vic Fangio and letting Vic Fangio do what Vic does, like he's able to manage his football team, connect with his players. And I will tell you this, man, I've been around the Eagles quite a bit over the last several years calling games. Man, he's got a great connection to his players. Like, every time he walks into a meeting, he's got a T-shirt of a guy. Like, they'll make T-shirts of guys on their football team. It'll be a Jalen Hurts T-shirt. It'll be a Saquon T-shirt. It'll be a A.J. Brown T-shirt, whatever. And there's certain things that go on during the course of the week. He'll have T-shirts made up, and, like, he celebrates his players, man. He does a good job, I think, of being in charge, but still, being connected relationally to his players, and then letting his coaches do their job. And this goes all the way back to his first year in Philadelphia, where they're 2-5, and he gives play calling duties over to his offense coordinator at the time, Shane Steichen. And says, hey, man, take over for me. Like, this is not going well, and I don't feel as connected as I want to feel to my team. And, like, so all those things are great. And, there was even a moment at the beginning of this year, they started off 2-2, and people were saying, hey, man, this is just a carryover from last year when they went 10-1 and then lost, 6 of the last 7 games. And, people were talking here locally about, hey, should we fire him? Is he going to make it through the season and all this stuff? And he's done a really good job of not only, letting his coaches coach, managing his football team, but also almost changing the perception that I think the general public has of Nick Sirianni of, this guy is not a real coach or whatever, to, hey, man, he's managed this Philadelphia Eagles team. And you got to understand, managing the Eagles is harder than managing a lot of teams, because you go through, like, even in the midst of having an incredible season, put a quarter and a half together where your offense doesn't produce, and you could be 12-2. A quarter and a half later, you're like, boo, get out of here, you suck. That's how Philadelphia is.
It's like being a high school football coach in Texas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're as good as your last game.
Right.
And if you lose it, you wake up the next day, there are for sale signs on your front yard. It's remarkable. I mean, you have zero margin for error. 100%.
So I think he's done an incredible job. And I've just gotten to know him over the last few years, and I think he's done a really great job with that football team, balancing the personalities and getting guys to buy into what's best for us as a football team to win a championship. And I've got a lot of experience with that. Mike Shanahan was tremendous at that. Like, this is what it takes for us to win a championship. Are you in? Are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice some of your individual accolades or goals that you aspire to say, hey, man, the team is more important than me? And, and I, like Super Bowl 32, Mike Shanahan went to John Elway and said, hey, man, you want to win a championship? Of course I want a championship. Okay, because you're not going to be the reason we win it.
Right.
I need you to do these things for us, and you're not going to win the MVP doing it this way. Like, you're not. But this is the way we're going to win this football game. And to John's credit, he's like, I don't give a crap about winning an MVP. I just want to win. I've been there 3 times. We've gotten slaughtered 3 times. I just want a victory. And so to have a coach that's able to kind of convey that message and say, hey, this is what we need from you. And he's done that all season. And that's a juggling act, man. That's a balancing act. And I think he's done a phenomenal job with that part of the game.
Well, I don't want to leave Andy Reid out of this conversation real quick. So what's Reid's secret? Because you're talking about sustained success over many, many years. And, I know you got the quarterback, but there's got to be something special, something unique that he brings that allows the message to never get stale.
Chicken nuggets. Give me some of those nuggies. Give me some of those nuggies. It's keeping. I really think that it's keeping things fresh, right, and keeping everybody involved. And like, when you are an expert at game planning, but at the same time you're also kind of devious in the way you do it. Right. It keeps players peaked, their interest peaked.
Yeah. And
it's funny, man. I just went through their third downs from the AFC Championship, Mike. So they had 10 third downs. I think they were, or 9 third downs. They were 4 of 9 or 5 of 9. I think they were 5 of 9, something like that, whatever it was. I really didn't care about the conversions or whatever. I was just looking at third downs. And of the 9 third down plays they had, all 9 were different formations and different personnel groupings and unique things from a formational standpoint that they hadn't shown in the last 5 weeks. And so when you get to that situation, or you get down to the goal line and you got some special play, whether it's a throw to an offensive lineman or a formation that nobody's ever seen, and there's some little shovel pass to a tight end coming across a formation, guys get like, we're simple creatures, man. Like men are simple creatures,
right?
We're not that. Like, keep us fed, give us a little loving every now and again.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're
That's
good.
all we really need, right? Yeah. And football players are simple creatures. You gotta keep it interesting and fun. And I'm telling you, when there's a special play and the coaches devise it and somebody else is going to get a touch and somebody else is going to get an opportunity to score, dude, we're like a bunch of little kids.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like I always tell this story. We had this when I played for Washington in 1991. We won the Super Bowl. Like, we ran roughshod through the league, and we had this special play in. And back then we never ran special plays, right? We had this goal line play in, and so we ran it in practice every week, and it was a pass play to my roommate Mark Addix. Went on, 10-year professional career, went on to Harvard Med School and is an orthopedic surgeon in Houston. He's freaking way smarter than me. And he's just a great dude. And so as we went through the season, I mean, we had this play-in for like 8 straight weeks, Mike. We run it every time we get to goal line, 2-point conversion play, right? You have 5 plays. We ran it once, for 8 straight weeks, right? And Russ Grimm, the Hall of Famer, wanted to be the guy that came in as the extra offensive lineman to run the play because he wanted to score a touchdown. And so he was paying Mark Rippon every week to throw Addix a bad ball. So it became like none of the coaches knew, right?
That's funny.
So every time you couldn't make it obvious, but it was just like this, just a bad enough ball to have Mark drop one so Russ could lobby to get in and do the thing, right? So it was like $20 every week that Russ would pay Rippon to throw him a bad ball. So Rippon was throwing all these bad balls, and Addix is just stabbing, stab it one-handed, down to the ankles, roll, touchdown. He didn't drop a single ball for 8 weeks. He made the most spectacular. He was DeAndre Hopkins, or he was, give me any receiver that just makes ridiculous Justin Jefferson one-hand catches, right? And he's doing it week in, week out, and Russ is just flipping 20s over to Mark Rippon, and it's this big inside the locker room joke, and we're all in on it. None of the coaches know what's going on, and it's so much fun. And then we get in this game against Philadelphia, the Eagles, and we actually call it. And it's wide ass open. Wide ass open. And Rippon throws this lollipop to Addix. It goes right through his hands, through the wickets, and hits the ground. I mean, he's making these one-handed stabs. He can't drop a thing. And it's just this easy lollipop that it trickles right through his arms and legs. And so, it's cool to have those moments. It's cool to have those things in practice, and it just keeps everybody excited about what is my coach going to devise next? What is he going to put us in that gets us that classic, that critical first down? And I've said this before, and I'll leave you with this when it comes to the Chiefs. I have never witnessed their equal offense, defense, special teams of making a critical play in a critical moment. Mm-hmm. And that part has nothing to do with the officials. They're just damn good. And I will give them, if you're a Chiefs fan who tuned out at the beginning of this podcast, shame on you, because I will always give you your credit where credit's deserved. And they're probably the best I've ever seen, like off the top of my head, the best I've ever seen at those critical moment plays.
Well, Chief fan, take comfort in this. It only took Mark 28 minutes to come back to the Chiefs and give him credit. So, it was worth the wait.
You know what, Chief fan?
It was worth it.
Chief fan, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Well,
I hope you get your ass kicked.
Later in the week, we'll meet up again, and we'll really dive into the matchup and all that and what has to happen in a game that when the line first came out, it was Chiefs minus 1.5, and here we are almost 10 days later. Market hasn't moved. So, this looks like it's going to be a real nail biter, and I think we're all ready for that. So
yeah, it should be a good one. No question about it. All right. We'll be back with you. I'll be live from New Orleans later on in the week. We'll break it all down. As Mike said, for Mike Evans, I am Mark Schlereth. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. And we'll be back with you later on in the week to break it all down. Super Bowl 59 right around the corner. Thanks for making us a part of your day.